Yo, welcome back to my YouTube channel, The Life of M. And you might be hearing this and you might be checking right now that, am I on the right channel? You are on the right channel. I just haven't changed the name. I just haven't changed the name yet. I will get around to the name whenever I feel like it. Not to be disrespectful, I think right now it's fine. I'm really not the biggest YouTuber in the world, so like having the right name isn't like number one priority on my list. Just being able to record is kind of my priority right now. And yeah, but this playlist is essentially the aspect of my YouTube channel where it's a podcast of me talking about topics that I feel like relate to all of us. I'll be talking about topics and lessons that I have learned just living the human experience. And so this is applicable to you as long as you're human. If you're not human, then I can't really do anything for you. But as long as you're you like feel like me, look like me, taste like me, smell like me. I don't want to say look like me because you might not necessarily look like me. This is applicable to you. And today's episode is inspired by graduation season. It is graduation season for people in middle school, for people in high school, for people in college. And I'm reminiscing on my year since graduation from college, but I dropped off. I saw a friend for the last time. I'm probably gonna see in person for the last time for the next 2 years for a very personal reason. I am going this week on Friday to my old school to watch my friend graduate. I am simply and since it's been a year, I graduated May 14th around then I think. So it's about to be a year since graduation for me, a very emotional time in my life, and I think, but it's a very positive time in my life. I get excited by the possibilities that open up with the end of a chapter, because that's what it is. It is the end of a chapter. What it is, graduation, the end of a lifestyle that you've lived, maybe for a year, maybe for 2 years, maybe for 4 years, maybe for 8 years if you're trying to become a doctor. 8 years you've been molded and you've been doing the same thing, relatively the same thing. And so the end of such a period of time in your life is always an emotional time, at least for me. For me, I find that it's very emotional. And so, inspired by that, today's topic is taking risks. I can say the word risk like singular, but when I put plural, like taking risks, starts to like, I start to butcher it a little bit. It's very weird. But anyways, let's dive straight in. I was not really able to take notes for this as the day went along. I really locked in on my day job and I was really busy with work. But the whole day, I'm kind of thinking on my experiences with taking risks. And if you've listened to my Spotify podcast, the Malik Tijani podcast, where I have a whole 74 episodes of just audio that's not on my YouTube channel, it's not on this channel, it's not anywhere else, it is only in my Spotify podcast. So if you want to listen to that, you can. I started it about December time, so it's not very much, it hasn't been years. It's not like me from 20 years ago. It's just a couple months ago. But yeah, on that podcast, I have consistently mentioned my experience from 3 years ago now. It's been 3 years since my whole life changed. And it changed because I took one risk. And it was simply making a friend. And I could kind of feel it. Like I could feel that this person was gonna be a great friend of mine, and they still are today. I am currently debating driving 6.5 hours to them for Memorial Day weekend to just hang out with them, and that's how you know that I'm still friends with them. So from that one decision, this great friendship came about. Other great friendships came about. Other experiences in college came about. I went to conferences I never thought I would go to. I went to football games I never thought I'd go to. I just did so much more stuff because I took that one risk. And so, inspired by that, when I think graduation is kind of a symbol of changing times, that your life going forward will no longer be like the years that you've spent. And so, for some of you, you might be taking a risk. It might be a job offer that is offered to you that you're excited about, but it's in a whole different state. Maybe it's a whole different country. It might be a experience that you've been wanting to do, and now that you've graduated school, you have all this free time to plan and to actually go on that trip. It might be starting a YouTube channel. It might be just learning a new skill. Like for me, a year ago from now, I didn't have a license and I didn't have a car. Like I thought about that as I was driving home, and it's crazy. Last year at this time, I didn't have a license, I didn't have a credit card, I didn't have a car, I could barely cook, I couldn't do anything. I didn't have my own place to live. Of course, I was just graduating school, but there were so many skills that I felt like I was missing that I learned in the last year. It's insane. I now have a car, I have my own place, my own apartment. I live in New York, coming from Texas and Nigeria. Very different. I'm glad it's hot now. It was very cold for a long time and very dark. I drove to Canada. I just drove to Boston 2 weeks ago. I'm thinking of driving to Michigan, which is 6.5 hours, and I have less than a year of driving experience. I've been flying all over the place. It's insane how much you can really accomplish by taking one risk. And for me, a year from now, it was not only graduating, it was not only accepting a job in New York away from my family, it was simply getting my license. I had 1 month before work started, after graduation, to find an apartment, or 1.5 months to find an apartment in New York, to get my license, because I need to drive. I'm going to be living by myself in the cold in New York. I had 1 month to do so much stuff. I took lessons with my dad on driving, but I enrolled in a driving school to make it like official, and I took 4 classes, and my final driver's test was the very day. It was on a Friday, and the next day, Saturday, I was flying to New York, like a one-way trip. I was not coming back. That was me going there, moving into my apartment, and getting ready for work. It was a one-way ticket. It wasn't a round trip. I was not flying back. So I literally had to pass my driver's test that Friday, that day, or else I would have had to have taken it in New York, and that would have just been extra money, extra worry. I'm not really as familiar with the roads as a new driver, so I literally had to pass. And out of 100, I remember the score. I got an 82, I believe, and I think you need a 70, at least in Texas, to pass. So because there was one turn, I was doing good. I hit my reverse. What is it called again? When you back up into a parking space, parallel park. I did that perfectly, but there was a certain turn where on the street it was like a 2-lane left turn, and I turned from the second left lane into the first left lane, which is what you do not do. You just don't do that. And I was like, oh shoot, have I failed? I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna just keep going. And so I got an 82, and I needed a 70 to pass. And so they were telling me all this stuff like, oh, you'll get better with your control as you drive more, and make sure to do this. In my head, I'm just gassed. I'm not hearing none of that. I'm just excited to have got my license, because I didn't have it for 4 years in college. I asked for rides everywhere. I didn't have a car, I didn't have a license, I didn't have nothing. And so I got my license the day off. I went to the DMV, got my temporary paper license, and the next day flew out to New York, and that was my license in New York as I got my car and everything. And so from taking that one risk, I have experienced so much. I drove to another country, even if it's Canada, which is right around the corner. I just drove to Boston, which is 5.5. I'm thinking of driving to Michigan, which is 6.5. And a year ago, I didn't even have my license. I couldn't even properly drive a car. It's ridiculous. It's been less than a year. And that was just one risk. There's many more that I have done that have I've had such a positive feedback on myself that I'm not even mentioning it. But in most cases, maybe even all cases, taking risks is only for your own benefit. Because there are two things that will happen. You will either learn something about yourself that you've been needing to learn, or you're going to learn a lesson that you also needed to learn. So regardless, you're learning. Regardless, you are learning in this process of risk taking, learning about yourself, learning about the world, learning about life. And so you have to take risks. You have to take risks in life. Because the only thing waiting for you, if you don't, is regret. If you think that by not taking risks, like being comfortable, being safe, is not a risk, that in and of itself is a risk. You're risking your life. You're risking all the experiences, all the possibilities, all the opportunities for you that are only available to you if you kind of push yourself just a little bit. You don't have to completely go out of your comfort zone. You don't have to like completely just destroy your life and uproot your life and move to a whole new country, move to Russia or Germany or something. You can just push it a little bit and get past it a little bit, and then you get this sort of energy. You receive this sort of like motivation to do it more and more and more, and you find yourself, before you know it, completely outside of your comfort zone, and you've become almost a whole new person. That is what the art of taking risks can bring you. You will always learn something when you take a risk. That is something I've found to be true. I saw a quote, or I read a quote, I think on Instagram, by Alex Hormozy. I can't say his name properly, but essentially it was just a little snippet, and it read, "The only time you're in life when you are safe from hardship, when you're free from hardship, is when you're not growing." And so the art of taking risks is essentially a form of growth. You take a risk on yourself, you take a risk on your life to realize, to bring something into your life that you want. That is, you don't really take risks for any other reason. You only do it for something that you want, something that you crave, something that you find benefit in having. There's no other reason. Even if you don't get it, most of the time you will learn a lesson that you can take into the future. And in future cases, maybe just learning that lesson alone may have saved you so much more time, so much more money, so much more just effort, just from learning that lesson once, and then you can take it into your future experiences and know what to do. If you never take risks, you will never know what you can become. You will never know what you can achieve. You will never know where your life may be. You can imagine it in your head. You can imagine your life the best that you can, but you're always limited by what is in front of you. You are always limited by your current circumstances. And so sometimes you just have to stop thinking and just do something. I'm not telling you to just like stop planning completely, but planning is good, but planning and not really doing anything for weeks, for months, for even years. Some people plan for years. That's insane. But never really clicking that publish button, never really pressing purchase on that thing you've been thinking about, never really taking that trip you've been thinking about. It's not really, it's just not doing you any good. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of effort that your life is running out. That's one thing I've realized. Not taking risks is also a risk in its own sense, but it comes in the form of regret. And regret only comes in hindsight. Regret only comes after the fact, which is why it sucks. That is why it sucks so much, because you cannot do anything about regret. It will just be there. It's about your past and what you could have done with your past. But because you can't change your past, you just sit with this feeling of whatever it might be, this negative feeling that's just in your stomach. It always comes after the fact. So you might think that you're playing it safe, and by playing it safe, you're doing great. But in some aspects, that might be true. But in all of life, if you just never take risks, if you never take a risk ever, there's a lot of regret waiting for you. I didn't take risks for and a half years, which is pretty measly when you think about the lifetime of a person, maybe 60, 70, 80, 90 years. 3.5 years is like this, it's like quick. But for me, after experiencing all the different things I was missing out on, after finally deciding to take a risk and to see what all of this was about, that 3.5 years, it hit hard. It hit really hard. And I was like, man, I could have been doing this whole time. I could have been eating this. I could have been talking like this. I could have been watching this. I could have been experiencing this with these people. So there was so much available to me, and I just thought playing it safe was the way to go. And that was just 3.5 years. Some people don't do something they've been thinking about for 10 years. 10 years. Some people don't do it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Some people don't do it at all until the very end of their life, when they kind of review. You're kind of forced to look back at your life at the end of your life. If you never did it at any point in your life, at the very end, it will come to you. Like all of it will come to you in a wave. And they see all the things that they could have done if they simply took a risk. If they simply took one risk. It's both sad and both motivating, at least for me now, because it motivates me to do things like this, to get a camera and to record and to publish and to post on YouTube, even though it's not perfect. Definitely not near perfect, lighting wise and everything is bad, but I just want to get started. I have a mindset now, after I've been thinking about something for even a week. I was thinking about getting this camera for a week, like kind of trying to compare options and everything. And after a week, I was already frustrated. I was like, I just want something. I just want something to get started, and we'll move from there. Just a week. But before, I was okay with pushing things off for 3.5 years. It's a very big difference that I've come across. And obviously there's a balance to this. There's a balance to everything. You don't want to kind of just risk your life, for instance, like in every situation. But for things that you know will be to your benefit, things that you know can only be a positive for you, either a positive learning experience or just a positive experience in general. If you've been thinking about it for days, weeks, months, years, like there's no time for that. Like all of that was just a waste of time until you actually do it. And so I want to push y'all. I dare y'all to take a risk and do the thing that you've been thinking about. I know you've been thinking about it. I know it's been in your head. It's been in your head for a reason. It's there for a reason. Think about that. It's been in your head for a reason. If it was something like eating McDonald's where it was in your head for 20 minutes, then it's probably not as important if you forgot it in 20 minutes as well. But if you've been thinking about something consistently, when you go home, when you're at work, all the time, then there's a reason. There is a reason. And so I am simply trying to motivate you to listen to that voice. Listen to that voice that's inside you and take that risk. And that is what I have for today's episode on the art of risk taking. I will see y'all tomorrow, and as many days come after that, and we'll progress in our lighting, in our editing, in our just overall way of shooting videos. And so I hope y'all stay for the long run. I will be here whether you're here or not. Whether I'll be here when you need me, I'll be here when you don't need me, I'll be here when you're tired of seeing me. Regardless, I will be here. And so I said, I was about to close in a non-formal, non-usual way. But yeah, I will see y'all next time. Praise God.